Roshni, you may commence with the program.
Okay. Thank you. Good day and a very warm welcome to the 2021 Dr. Killie Campbell webinar. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar, and I'll be introducing our guest speaker, Ms. Sheldon. So also Prof. Moshe Moshebela, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation at UKZN, members of the Executive Management, our guest speaker, Ms. Mbata, members of Senate, academics and professional staff, members of the Advisory Board, Campbell Collections, our Acting Library Director, Dr. Natlantla Gopo, alumni, students, political, businesses and religious leaders, the media, family and friends, welcome. Ms. Mbata is a lecturer at the Department of History at the University of Zululand. She was a courseware developer at Technikon SA, which is now UNISA, a curriculum developer in Tranby Aboriginal College in Sydney, Australia, a qualified translator and interpreter in German and Spanish. She's an accomplished author of the groundbreaking and bestseller history book about the Zulu nation called Izulu Mlandu Nobuguwe, Book of Zulu, as well as the recently published book titled Zulu Empire Decolonized. She was advisor to the Zulu royal household based on her comprehensive Zulu history research. Ms. Mbata also worked at the Gauteng Film Commission. She was responsible for marketing the province to the international film industry to shoot both films and adverts. She's worked in various government departments in strategic levels, such as the Provincial Department of Education in Limpopo and the National Department of Arts and Culture in the Gauteng Office of the Premier and Robben Island Museum. She also has a sterling record as an investigative journalist and broke many stories that changed many people's lives. Amongst some of her achievements, a recipient of the Youth Development Trust Award, the Gauteng Women Trailblazer Finalist Award, South African Special Envoy to Canada for 4 months. She was a member of the Presidential Fact-Finding Mission in Darfur, Sudan, the Media Fact-Finding in Palestine and Israel. She's a Rhodes University Courageous Journalist of the Year finalist. Ms. Mbata is also a PhD candidate. She has an MA in International Communication, a BA in Translation and Interpretation. She also has a graduate diploma in Education in Modern Languages, a certificate in to teach English as a second language, a certificate in Public Relations, and a certificate in Investigative Journalism. She also has done a Thinking and Planning Strategically with the Wits Business School. So welcome, Ms. Mbata and colleagues, over to you. And she's going to present to us on the Zulu succession. So over to her, and a warm welcome once again to one and all. Thank you.
Sorry, Miss Sheldon. Please unmute your mic. We can't hear you.
Hello, am I on now?
Yeah. Now, yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I was saying thank you so much for the warm welcome, and I'm happy to be here and talking about the Zulu, especially the Zulu royal family, is always fascinating. People are fascinated the world over. The Zulu are a brand in Africa, they are banned internationally, and it's forever, ever interesting and fascinating. So we are this afternoon going to be talking about the Zulu royal succession for the next hour, and we'll be unpacking the historic robustness of its processes and systems. So I'll just get straight into it. Africans have an all-encompassing belief system in the afterlife. We believe in eternal life, hence what we do daily is somewhat influenced by the fact that every individual has to account for their actions in the afterlife. Thus, the living and the dead are part of the same community, resulting in a moral relationship between the two. I've started on this morbid note because Zulu royal succession disputes are also permeated in this tenet. We, the Zulu, believe that for one to be king, it is ordained by the Almighty after consulting the ancestors. The current dispute is not something new in the royal family. In fact, in most royal families, there's always some drama after a king passes on. Amongst the Zulu, the first succession murder in recorded history took place in 1781. You can imagine it's over 200 years ago. This happened after King Jama's passing. For those who do not know, that is King Shaga's grandfather. Now, Jama's daughter, Princess Mkabai, boldly appointed herself as the regent and led a small regiment together with the Crown Prince Senzangakona and killed the pretender to the throne, Sojiisa. The reason Mkabai led a small army to fight and kill Sojiisa is because his mother, Nongaji, was pregnant from another man when he got married to Jama. After this audacious move, Senzangakona got to rule as a king in peace. When Senzangakona passed away in 1816, Mkabai was appointed as a regent by the King's Council, making her the regent for the second time. She then chose Gujanaga Senzangakona as the next king, even though he was born by the 8th wife and he was Senzakona's 5th son. This has an impact on what is going on in the royal family today. Basically, it is not automatic that the firstborn son is made king. However, I digress. King Shaka was the firstborn son, and he would not have none of this. And he arranged the drowning of Skujana, after which made him King Shaka the new king. This is how Shaka ascended the Zulu throne. In turn, Shaka, who was now an emperor after conquering over 15 Nguni kingdoms, was murdered by his paternal brothers, Nhlangana, Dingane, and other relatives in 1828. The chief instigator of the killing of King Shaka was Dingane. As the succession was being discussed in 1828, once again Mkabai was made the regent for the third time. Dingane had to move swiftly as he had promised his co-conspirators the crown if they helped him get rid of Shaka. Instead, he turned on them and killed them all. That is how he became the king. Once on the throne, he became paranoid and killed all of Senzangakona's sons, who were over 15 in number, fearing that they would remove him from the throne. He even looked for King Shaga's biological sons, but they were hidden away from him. However, the only one of Shaga's sons, Mpande, survived the assassination by pretending to be intellectually incapacitated. However, 12 years later, Mpande decided to be sane, and with the help of Afrikaners, he challenged Dingane to the coveted Zulu throne. The two paternal brothers fought in the First Zulu War at the Battle of Maqongo in 1840, where Dingane lost and he fled to exile in Swaziland, where he ultimately died. Once again, the Zulu had no king, and as fate could have it, Mkabai was made the regent for the 4th time until Mpande was coronated. 16 years later, Mpande caused Shaga's sons, that is Prince Cetshwayo and Prince Mbuyazwe, to fight over a trifle matter at the Battle of Ndodabusuga in 1856, yes. But it was clear to all what Mpande was trying to do. He had hoped that Shaga's sons would kill each other so that one of his own biological sons, either Mkhungo or Mtonga, would become king. However, Cetshwayo triumphed and Mbuyazwe was killed. Unfortunately, his body was never found. After the savage Second Zulu Civil War, Mkabai made Cetshwayo the regent, even though Mpande was alive and well. You see, she was punishing Mpande for seeking help from the colonizers. Cetshwayo was finally coronated a year after Mpande's death in 1873. After defeating the British at Isandlwana in 1879, now let us fast forward to when Cetshwayo died in 1884. As he lay dying after he was poisoned by the British, he appointed Dinizulu as his heir, even though he had not married his mother, uNdlunkulu kaMsweli. Dinizulu was on the throne for 29 years, and when he passed away in 1913, the Zulu Prime Minister at the time was Mankulumana Ndwandwe, announced Prince Nyawana as the king because he was Dinizulu's firstborn son. He assumed he should be the next king. However, Nyawana was removed from the throne after only 24 hours because Dinizulu had actually written a will that appointed one of his other sons called Maphumzana as the king. He's also popularly known as Solomon, but it's actually not Solomon. Isolinomona, but it was turned into Solomon. But for our purposes, we're going to call him King Maphumzana. Nyawanga gracefully obliged and he let go of the throne. Both princes, by the way, had been born in St. Helena Island, where Dinizulu had been exiled. When Maphumzana passed away in 1933, there was drama that lasted for years. The mothers of his very many male children claimed that their son was a rightful heir. Hence, the king's brother, Prince Mshieni, was appointed as a regent while the dispute raged on. However, the temporary power went to his head, and without consulting anyone, he tried to coronate Prince Pigugwaziyoga Phumzana. When the royal family laughed at his audacity, it did not deter him, as his eyes fell on yet another prince, Thandai Phumzana. Again, no one entertained his delusions. Finally, in 1944, uNdlunkulu kaMathatela, who was King Maphumzana's first wife, produced a will that appointed their firstborn son, Beduzulu, as a crown prince. Obviously, no one believed her. They contested that it was neither the king's handwriting nor his signature. I guess it sounds familiar with today's situation, right? She then went to court. It was the first time that the white man's court was approached to verify a royal document. She was vindicated. Mshieni was so incensed by the court's decision that he resigned with immediate effect, spitefully leaving a power vacuum. By this time, Princess Mkabayi was long dead and gone, and she was sorely missed. The royal family then made Sifile Sibiya, a son to one of the Zulu princesses, the regent. As soon as Beduzulu became king, he made sure that he appointed his heir in order to avoid any future controversy. He informed the king's council that the crown prince was Zwelithini. However, when Beduzulu passed away, Zwelithini was too young to rule. Then one of his uncles, Prince UKZN Phumzana, was made the regent. But he also became reluctant to hand over the throne when the legitimate crown prince was ready to rule, the late majesty. Suddenly, there were threats on Zwelithini's life, and he had to escape to exile in KwaNdebele homeland, which is now part of Mpumalanga province. During Zwelithini's absence, UKZN said that Zwelithini did not need to come back from exile, as it suddenly identified an 18-month-old baby as the rightful heir. After this announcement, Zwelithini's sister, she's late now, Princess Nonhlanhla, did not waste any time and left under the cover of darkness to fetch his younger brother from exile. The matter became a burning issue in the Zulu nation, and it was discussed everywhere, especially in Ilanga newspaper and on radio. That was the social media of the day. Some royal family members also felt that there was no need for UKZN to relinquish power to Zwelithini, as he was doing a great job. Others felt he had to step down. Zwelithini ended up having to be forced to demand the throne from UKZN at a tender age of 21 years. He was finally coronated in 1973 at Waketa Palace. He refused to wear a fake golden crown that the apartheid regime insisted he adorned. However, he was forced to accept a letter of appointment with a threat of removal that if he defied any of the apartheid laws as a king of their choice would be then installed in his place. And that king could have been a non-Zulu. Emperor Zwelithini Beduzulu sadly joined his ancestors in eternal life in March this year. He did leave a will, but with a twist. He did not appoint an heir. Instead, he left instructions that his principal wife, uNdlunkulu Mantfombi, would be responsible for winding up his estate and to also appoint the next king. As you are all aware, some royal family members were not happy and approached again the white man's court to stop her from carrying out the last king's wishes. This caused a lot of turmoil in the royal family, which reminded people of the UKZN saga. The royal family, as you are most of you would remember, held a number of urgent meetings in various palaces to resolve the matter, and heated arguments could be heard from the leaked recordings that went viral on social media. Injunctions to restrain the grieving queen from carrying out the king's last wishes were sought in different courts by different members of the royal family. The whole world was fascinated and gripped by the royal tribulations, and they dominated the national and international headlines. While the Zulu nation was trying to make sense of life without the cherished emperor, Zwelithini, who had been on the throne for over 50 years, worse was to come. Even before the courts could attend to the matter or announce whom she was going to appoint, Queen Mantfombi suddenly passed away. The Zulu Empire found itself with no leader a mere 49 days after Emperor Zwelithini had passed. The Zulu lamented in hostels, taxi ranks, and in boardrooms, meaning that Princess Kabayiga Chama's wisdom was sorely missed. History repeated itself as it did after the passing of Mapumzana, when all queens said that their son, who had been the crown prince all along. It was only the Mantfombi's sons who did not have a queen in their royal corner to speak for them. However, the name of Prince Magadi was touted the most in the media as an obvious heir. Tensions were high, and the Zulu nation was on tenterhooks. Even non-Zulus had an opinion who should be next in line. Most interesting of all was the Zulu diaspora living in African states, whose forefathers had left to conquer more land during King Shaga's empire-building wars. They sent delegations to the royal family to pay their condolences. Luckily, Queen Mantfombi had left a will. More drama unfolded as the royal family assembled on the grounds of Wakangela Palace, where the will was to be read in public by a judge in full view of everyone, including the international media. She had proclaimed her firstborn son, Prince Misuzulu Manqoba Zwelithini, as the next Zulu emperor. A thunderous bayete resounded as a sign of recognition. Even before the noise had subsided, a family member jumped to his feet and tried to raise objection to the will, but he was ordered to sit down, and all other dissenting voices were also told to keep quiet as their opinion was irrelevant. Then pandemonium broke loose, and a ride-royal slinging match ensued, echoing in the ancient Zulu valleys. The newly appointed king had to be evacuated to safety by Amabuto, the royal guard, and the special forces. Thereafter, the nation, even non-Zulus, celebrated the new emperor, and parties were held throughout South Africa, and they sang the Zulu national anthem. Then a few weeks later, June 26 to be precise, the royal family, including those who had been to court, the traditional leadership, Amakosi, Amabuto, Izintombi, and thousands of ordinary Amazulu, as well as well-wishers, went to Wakangela to pledge their fidelity to the new sovereign. To date, the challenges of both the late king's authority to make Queen Mantfombi the caretaker of royal affairs, as well as her will, have yet to be heard in court. In the meantime, Prince Misuzulu continues to carry out all his royal duties. In the meantime, Emperor Misuzulu continues to carry out all his royal duties and officiate in all ceremonies, and the date of when he will be coronated, as per the prescript of the South African Constitution, will soon be announced by the president of the country. The processes and systems, as gleaned above, succession to the Zulu throne has always been imbued with controversy, suspense, and intrigue. Added to this cocktail of Game of Thrones is a random use of different philosophical and legal systems to settle the ancient royal matter. However, the attempt to use white laws, or more precisely, Roman Dutch law, to decide African ancient institutions is problematic because most judges are not adequately equipped or trained to function in traditional courts. This is because of their training and the general lack of understanding of African languages, culture, and its innuendos. Just to illustrate this point, to a great extent, the current law curriculum in South Africa teaches a hybrid of the following legal systems: a civil law system inherited from the Dutch, a common law system inherited from the British, a customary law system inherited from the indigenous African or African customary law, of which there are many variations depending on the ethnic group. Then add the interim constitution of 1994 and the final constitution of 1996 that was weaved into the above legal system. As I conclude, the pursuit of finding resolution, the robust systems of consensus and common ground within the royal family may seem to be a quarrel or falling out, but in fact, it is a discussion, as there's no formula to be followed. As gleaned in the Zulu history, it is not automatic who becomes a crown prince. This is to mitigate circumstances such as, what if the firstborn is mad or becomes of unsound mind or does not possess leadership qualities? Finally, members of the royal family know that even though they may not be king, it does not mean that they are not valued. They remain respected and loved for being amazinyane esilo. Ngiyazibongela nina besilo bayede. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shalom Bata, for your lecture. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I did, and I gained some information that I didn't know about. So I am going to take questions now. Please raise your hand, or you can also leave your question on the Q&A chat box. And please don't forget to unmute once you are done asking your questions. So I'm gonna start taking questions now. Please raise your hand if you do have any questions. Okay, this is from Swati Mandela, who's saying this was a great lecture.
Thank you.
And then we have another comment from Nandi Molefe, saying fascinating to hear King Shaka Zulu referred to as an emperor, and rightly so. Perhaps the airports need to be renamed as well. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally, yes.
Yeah. So, okay. No questions so far. So I guess you hit the nail.
Perhaps I load shedded. Perhaps whilst we're waiting for more questions, I just want to elaborate a little bit about the emperor king. As you could see, I was using both emperor and I was using king sometimes. You see, except that King Shaka, before King Shaka burst into the scene of being the Zulu king, the Zulu kingdom was under a kingship. However, he became emperor when he conquered the 50 or more kingdoms. However, he still remains a king of the Zulu family. So both are acceptable. That is why in some other countries they're called emperor king so and so. So just to clear that, why is sometimes called emperor, sometimes it's called king.
Okay. Thank you for that. We have one question from Nandi Molefe. She is asking, is it possible for a queen to rule the Zulu Empire, or are men only allowed to rule?
I don't want to be speared. So far, the ruling dynasty has been going through the men. However, it does not take away the power of the women that they have in influencing matters of running the Zulu Empire. For instance, even the Zulu language has got metaphors and sayings such as meaning if what men cannot solve, they go and defer to women. Secondly, King Shaka, who is the first emperor, he never went to war without talking to the female Queen's Council. In other words, he had a council of women who were all post-menopause, who were sitting in this council, and he got advice from them. If the women said, no, you shall not go to war, or this is not the right time for you to go to war, it never happened. Number three, the women in the Zulu culture are so revered and respected that the Zulu name for the Zulu kingdom is Mtania. Mtania is a female. Most people don't know that. So you can imagine the power and the love that the Zulu men have for the women, that they even call their own country after a female. So that women can become kings, I think would be a very minor role that they could play. They're much more powerful where they're seated right now.
Okay, thank you. I hope, Nandi, you are well answered. Okay, I'm just going to take 2 more questions. This one is from Colin. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I'm not, please forgive me. Is there any connection between Zulu Royal House and other South African royal houses? For an example, the Xhosas.
Okay.
Can I ask one more? Or okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, the second one is from Zamadonda Ulu Kasaba. The question is, are there any attempts to actually have written documents that can be used as a guide in the future? It might assist in minimizing these instances. Otherwise, thank you for the information.
Okay, I'll start with the first one. King Shaga's brilliance, except being a military genius, was that he knew that when people are married, when you marry one another, when the families marry another family, you become relatives, or the in-laws. It doesn't translate very well in English. However, King Shaga's, one of his major strategies was to make sure that there was intermarriage between the Zulu kingdom and other kingdoms outside the Zulu. Therefore, it was he put out that blueprint. Hence, in all the Southern African royal families, there's Zulu blood, and it started with King Shaka to make sure that they intermarried. However, when the British arrived in the 1820s, they also learned from King Shaka. That is why Sheldon, he wanted to have influence in Swaziland. He then offered the Swazi king at that time 300 cattle for Princess Tifogadi as his wife. So she was lobolad by Sheldon with 300 cows and more gifts, so that Princess Tifogadi would come and live in Natal with where the white people were having a small enclave, and that the Swazi government or the Swazi kingdom would then regard him as a relative, so that whatever relationships that they wanted to build would be very cordial. Even the late king took a wife from the Xhosa kingdom. Some of the princes that we have, Amaziani Esilo, are married to the different kingdoms around Southern Africa. So it is something that is continuing, and I'm very sure it will continue into the future, because the Zulu are known for war. However, that diplomacy is second to none, because the first thing they try and do to negotiate, or they meet someone, is to create a relationship. And there's no better relationship than when people are married to one another. The late queen was from Swaziland, Princess Manfombi Dlamini. She was a Swazi queen, a princess, hence she became the principal wife. So yes, absolutely, intermarriages are definitely in the house. And Utlabashe wanted to know, are there any publications that can be used to teach the history? Yes, they do exist in my 2 books. The first one is called Uzulu Umlando Buqhabuka Zulu, which is the one that I spent over 20 years researching. And the late king wrote the foreword, because every fact in the book has been verified. Number 2, the English version, slightly different, but the English version is called Zulu Empire Decolonized. That one is available on Amazon, both as an ebook and as a paperback. So this information is available online, and people can engage further if they want to.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions. Okay. This one is from Anonymous. I guess they don't want to be known. Okay. The comment reads, I did not know that Shaka had sons. How many were they? Were they from the same woman? Very little or nothing is mentioned about the sons and the woman. What would that be?
Oh, okay.
Another one is from Queen Velase. The question is, are the wives only chosen from the Ngunis only?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. King Shaka had a lot of children, both male and female. However, the ones that I personally can vouch for, that I know existed because I found them in my research and I went to where the places where they were and I met the families of the wives or of their mothers. The first son that King Shaka had was called Uzibizendlele. He was born to a Matrele. When the child was about 2 years old, Matrele took Zibizendlela, they went all the way up to northern Zululand, around the Tembe area. That's where they're found today. So all the ancestors, the descendants are there. King Cetshwayo was a son to was born by King Shaka. Prince Mbuyazwe, the one they fought with, was also born to King Shaka. Those are the three that I can vouch for. But I'm sure if I had enough time and resources, I'll find more. Just to illustrate the issue around King Cetshwayo, he is known to be King Bande's son. Again, sometimes language confuses issues. When one of King Shaga's girlfriends, I can call it, was pregnant, he gifted her to Mbande, who was younger than him, his younger brother. Remember, they're both sons of Senzangakona. So when the mother of King Cetshwayo gave birth, he was already the wife of Mbande. Now, in Zulu, that is called, meaning he is now the son of Mbande, but it does not mean biological. It means in all respects, except biological. Similarly, Prince Magade was raised by the late Queen Manfombi, but he is not a biological son of Manfombi, but he was raised by her ever since he was a little boy. So the Zulu system of kinship is very intricate, but it's all meant for the good. And so far, no, the wives of kings do not necessarily come from the Nguni groups only. King Dinizulu, he was arrested and exiled in St. Helena Island, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. When he came back with 4 local Hellenese women. 2 were white, 2 were mixed race. He took them as his wives. So when he came back to South Africa, he came back with them and he lived with them where he died, in Middelburg, where he passed on. So no, the answer is not only the Nguni. You know, a beautiful woman is a beautiful woman in the eyes of any man. So everybody's welcome.
True. Okay, we have another comment. It's not a question, it's a comment from Queen Velase. It says, interesting times we live in. Thank you, Sis Shalo, for your leadership and knowledge on this. We are late. Indeed, we are. Okay, please keep the questions coming if you do have ones. Let me see if we have another one. Okay, we have another one from Langedishe Kumete, asking, has there been a time where Miss Shalo found herself discussing or advising the Zulu royalty family matters with the royal family, even King himself?
This question is very humbling. Oh my goodness. I just share a few anecdotes. Perhaps they will highlight my answer. You see, I've been dealing with the Zulu all my life in Zululand because I'm a Zulu in diaspora and I'm from Johannesburg. So I've learned a lot how to answer certain questions. One of the questions the late king asked me was, what does Qekwa mean? Because that is one of King Shaga's praise names. And I glibly referred to him. I said, oh, Ilembe, then I use another word. I said, no, Dumetlezi. Then I said, Usulwane Helele, I then said, Qekwa. And he says to me, why do you call him that? I said, oh, that name actually, he inherited from his father, King Senzangakona. Because King Senzangakona was called Qekwa. And this name was given by King Dingiswayo of the Mtetwa Kingdom, because King Senzangakona was very tall, so he was teased and they called him Qekwa. So yes, I did share some new information with the late king. And yes, there's a whole lot of other things. I just think this one example will be enough. Advice, yes, I did on certain matters.
Okay, thank you. We do not have any more questions, but I am going to wait for like about a minute or so, just in case someone thinks of something or they want to know something.
Did you check maybe some comments? Maybe people have typed some of the questions.
Okay, let me check.
There is one hand up
Oh, I didn't
from
see
the
that.
attendees. I'm not sure if you can see it, but if not, I can unmute for you.
Please do so because I can't see.
Okay. I will unmute Moketsi.
Okay, thank you.
Moketsi, you can talk.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Pavantuli, for unmuting me. I was trying to to type it, but I realized that it was going to be very long. Perhaps forgive me for wanting to talk, but I just wondered if Mama Mbata can elaborate more on the issue that the way in how the Zulu nation was dealing with the issue of succession. It's a sharp departure from all the kingdoms in the African continent, not only in South Africa, where she is indicating that it wasn't become an automatic that the first prince would then assume the reign should the regent passed on or something happened. I just wanted to find out. I know she did indicate that the assumption was that you might not possess the qualities. They were anticipating so many things. I find it very foresight that they could have, preempted such things that would happen. I find it very intriguing because if you look at all the kingdoms here in the North African continent, it is always assumed that the first prince would be that one. And then secondly, again, while on the issue of the succession, if she could also elaborate more on the fact of the usage of the will in terms of actually nominating the succession. It's very interesting that the case of the regent king now, Mrs. Zulu, is not the first one that was handled by a will. I find it very fascinating that as early as that time, they had a foresight even in terms of the usage of the will. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Meketsi, for those comments. I will start with King Shaka. It was his genius to be able to look through the issue of biology. One of his biggest issues was there is no way that God would have made women and then have the women give birth to children that were, I want to use a politically correct term, who were not challenged. In other words, any child that is born and is challenged physically or mentally, developmentally as well, must be the fault of a man. I'm starting this way to explain that there was no way he was going to allow that just because I'm a firstborn child, it is automatic that I become, the next king. He was avoiding a situation whereby people would abuse or actually abuse the throne using the issue of being the firstborn child. I'm going back to the issue of God could not have created a woman and then let the woman bear a child that is not okay. His thing was when a child is born, the father has to be over 40 years old. Because he says when a man is over 40 years old, he would have survived a lot of diseases, a lot of epidemics. And then it means what, when he's alive, after all the wars and everything, he'd be hybrid. It means the children that he's going to bring to the world will be very healthy. You know, so, but the woman was allowed to have children at any given stage. So the issue of who must be king had to be very, very well taken care of. Number two, the first time a will was used was in 1944. And again, it was done by Queen Ogamathatela. And the will really, it was what was being challenged. It was not the will per se, it was a signature. So she took it to court to say, if you say this is my husband's signature, it means the will stands. Again, you know, is that foresightness you spoke about? And I all put this because King Shaka said, we've got our customs, we've got the way we do things. However, we must always take on whatever makes sense, and that is going to make the Zulu nation survive into the future. In other words, they must bob and weave with the times. The current situation we have at the moment, the will is being challenged. Suddenly, from what I hear, it's no more about the content of the will. Now, what is being challenged is a signature okay? Was a procedure followed? It's no more the will per se. So I think after a while, the royal family members, those who were not happy, are starting to realize that you cannot take an ancient institution like Zulu royalty and make it and give and leave it to a couple of people who most of the time would not be even be Zulu or understand some intricacies that would assist in solving the matter, you know? So I guess it's something that we have to live with going forward.
Okay, thank you. I hope his question has been answered. We have 4 more questions here. So I'm just going to ask 2 and then you can answer them and then I'm going to ask the rest. Okay, this one is from Handsome Siphelele Mpele. In regards to the current wrangles in the royal house, what do you foresee as potential ramifications should these issues not be resolved in traditional manner? And then the other one is from Langeli Gumete, asking what is the difference between Indlunkulu and Ikhohlo? Okay.
Okay. All right. I wish I was Isangoma. I'd be able to tell you what's going to happen in future. I wish I could throw the bones, but you can be rest assured that, you know, common ground is going to be found. The Zulu always prevail. They'll always find a way forward. The discussions can be robust. They can be vile, you know, like they can be the voices can be risen. People can act out, but at the end of the day, they'll all come to one conclusion, that the Zulu royalty has to be protected by any means necessary. So what I foresee in the future, there's going to be peace, and Emperor Mr. Zulu is going to rule over his people, and thank God he's very young. We're looking forward to having him on the throne for many years to come. Secondly, the difference between Indlunkulu and Ikhohlo. Indlunkulu is it's a woman that is in the royal family, married to the king. However, sometimes Indlunkulu does not necessarily have to be married. They must just have a relationship with the king, a ruling king. They also carry the title of Indlunkulu. But Indlunkulu are the members of the royal family. It means, you know, the aunts, the sisters, the children, everybody else is called Indlunkulu. But Indlunkulu is particularly the women that are attached to the king. Ikhohlo neqadi are the house. When you get married in the Zulu culture, the first wife will belong either to Iqadi, will belong either to Iqadi or Ikhohlo. There are 2 streams. You either belong to the left stream or the right stream. That's the easy way to describe it. And these houses have got to do with seniority when you are married. If you belong to the one side of the equilibrium, you always take precedent in, you know, sorting out the matters or taking part in ceremonies of the family. But this is not only restricted to the royal family. A normal Zulu home has those 2 streams, because invariably when you've got Istembu you need to belong somewhere. If you're wife number 1, you are paired off with wife number 3. If you're number 2 is paired off with wife number 4, it goes like that. I hope I've answered the question. It's very intricate.
Indeed. Okay, I have 2 more. This one's from Anonymous. Do you see any solution in what is happening currently with respect to succession in Royal Kingdom? And if you were to offer advice to the royal household as to how they should proceed with this matter, what would that be? Thank you. And then another one from, okay, I lost that one. Okay, this one is from Swati. Please, may you explain the role of a prime minister in the Zulu kingdom and how far back does this role go back in the Zulu empire?
Okay. My advice to the royal family, if they sought it, I'll be so honored, is to say, let us just all fall behind Ubayede. Let's support him. He's got a very big country and a nation to lead. Remember, the Zulu are not only restricted to the borders of KwaZulu-Natal. They go beyond the equator. We've got Zulus in Malawi, we've got Zulus in Uganda, we've got Zulus in Kenya, we've got Zulus in Angola, we've got Zulus in Zambia, and they all look up to His Majesty. And we've got Zulus in Zimbabwe, you know, the so-called Ndebele, they're very much Zulus. They've got, you know, our Zulu surnames, and they all recognize His Majesty as their leader. So he's on his young shoulders. He's got a very, very big responsibility. He needs our support. And yes, my advice would be, let's be available, especially the young people in this country. They're blessed to be born after apartheid. The only thing they can do now is to fight to make sure that the Zulu royalty survives and it goes to higher, you know, heights, so that we get looked upon with a lot of respect. Number 2, the prime ministers. Prime ministers have always been there. It's again another word that in English is prime minister, in isiZulu, undunankulu. Sometimes it's interpreted to be a chief advisor, depending. From my research, I found there's always been a prime minister. And the prime minister, sometimes they also tended to be the commanders-in-chief of the army, but they don't necessarily are the same people. But yes, all Zulu kings have had prime ministers, and they work and act exactly like all other prime ministers all over the world. They've got ultimate responsibility to advise His Majesty and to ensure that the whole nation or the subjects are aware, and they keep in line, and they're aware, and they support the royal family. So it's a very, very important position to have. If you like, if there's a private company, they are called the COOs of the nation. I don't know how to unpack that further. They're like the COO.
Thank you. I think I'm going to take this one more question because we are running out of time. Okay, this one is from Queen Velase. How is the issue of abdication handled in Zulu Kingdom in case a chosen Zulu king decides he does not want to lead the nation? What are the non-negotiable qualities that a Zulu king must have? For an example, in English monarchy, it's critical that the king or queen has not been divorced before because they become the head of the Church of England. Do any strict conditions exist in the Zulu culture?
Thank you. From my knowledge, there hasn't been a king that is abducted yet, or I don't know how to say that word. There's no king who has refused or has left the throne because they did not want to lead. You see, I'll be very surprised if there's anybody alive who will not want to lead the Zulu nation. They're an amazing nation. That is why the Zulu say about themselves, uZulu yasabe, because it is a very big responsibility. Remember, you don't become king because you choose, you are chosen. And most people who are given the responsibility of being king, they regard it as a God and ancestor, right that has been given to them. Secondly, non-negotiables. Remember, the king is the head of the Zulu nation, but he's not a dictator. He's not a tin pot. He doesn't rule by decree. He always has a team, if you like, the King's Council, that advises him. So the non-negotiables is that he must have leadership qualities, he must listen, and he must love the nation. And whatever he does, he puts the nation first. Those are the non-negotiables. And the list is very short. It's just the responsibility of knowing that you are leading a very, very important people that are highly regarded all over the world. And yes, I don't know much about the British monarchy and what they get up to. Yes, I'm aware that the heads of the church and so on, but as far as our royalty is concerned, the responsibility is over everybody. You're married, you're not married, single, not single. Our kings love every Zulu, and their responsibility is to make sure that their well-being is taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 hands up. I'm just going to take first Bafana Banza. Bafana Banza, please unmute and ask your question. And don't forget to unmute after you've done asking your question. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Mbali. That's just one question for you, Charlotte. It was quite an interesting lecture indeed, and I'm very much fascinated by the incisive accounts that you've provided on the Zulu royal family. Just maybe a comment, for starters. Seeing that the succession, issue within the royal family has ignited a contestation of narratives, and also there are many intricacies, connected to it. So, my question is, in your view, given the incisive accounts that you've just provided, what should be done, in order to tone down these controversies? And would we be correct in saying a precedent has already been set? I mean, given the historical background that you've shared with us. So maybe it's just a matter of people within the royal family accepting these realities to say, look, this is reality. History has taught us that, these things do happen. So would you be correct in saying a precedent has already been set, so maybe there's no need for this pandemonium that we see, play out within the royal family? Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Mpanza. The short answer is whatever discussions that are taking place, and never mind how robust they are, can they not be done in public? Like all families, people disagree. But when you step out of the door, out of the gate, you have a common face. So I think that would assist to bring a lot of confidence and less anxiety to the Zulu people and the nation, because even non-Zulus love the Zulu nation, So I think if all the discussions and the squabbles, if you like, should be kept away from the public eye, because they serve no purpose. They must keep the matters internally, solve them, and only step out with one voice. Because trust me, the one voice they are going to have, and are working day and night to have it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have until 15:55 for the questions, so we are left with 2 minutes. I'm going to take Mr. Zulu, who raised his hand. So Mr. Zulu, please unmute and ask your question. Thank you. Mr. Zulu, Paulus Zulu. Let me check. Okay, I think, okay. Mr. Zulu, okay. And then there's a comment from Queen Velase. Your book, Zulu Empire Decolonized, is amazing. That should become a full lecture in schools across the country.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate the warm fuzzy. Thank you.
Mr. Zulu, are you here? Okay, I think he's gone. So we have only 1 minute left. Do we have any more questions? Okay, I think not. Okay, let's just move on. I'm just going to welcome Mr. Senzo Mkhize to say his voice of thanks on behalf of Campbell Lecture and the UKZN as a whole. Mr. Mkhize, please. You can unmute and say your word of thanks. Thank you.
I'm Senzo Mkhize, the head of the Campbell Collection and Special Collections of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. On behalf of the University of KwaZulu-Natal and Campbell Collections and the entire fraternity of the university, first of all, my sincere thanks to Almighty God for making today's event a grand success. I give a really heartfelt vote of thanks to our guest speaker, Mrs. Sheldon, who spent his busiest time gracing the occasion. Today, we had the opportunity to hear your thoughts about the Zulu history, in particular, the succession begging, and this is definitely encouraging us in our future events. Your thoughts have enlightened our mind and showed us a new path. I would like to thank the following people. The DVC of Research and Innovation, I think he is with us. Professor Moshabed, the acting director of University of KwaZulu-Natal Library Services, Dr. Nonhlanhla Ngcobo, the portfolio head of special collections, Dr. Roshin Peth, and Ms. Pamela Adams, event and protocol manager from corporate relations, for her great work in designing and arranging for the lecture. Last but not least, our senior librarian, Ms. Mbali Zulu, for organizing the lecture. Thanks to all of you for adorning the occasion and sharing your opinion today. Have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Be safe from COVID-19 and other social ills. I hope you will be with us next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Senzo. I'm sorry, but I have Mr. Zulu says that he can't unmute himself. So please, can anyone unmute him? Because I also have the same problem. I can't unmute him. I'm sorry, Mr. Lufu.
No problem.
I know that we are going back, but yeah. Okay, Mr. Zulu, are you unmute? Mr. Zulu. Okay, please kindly leave your comment, your question on a chat box. Then I will ask Mr. Lumbata to answer. Okay, maybe privately, I don't know.
No problem.
Yeah, because you are running out of time. We have like 2 minutes left. Okay.
Am I unmuted now?
Oh, yeah, yes, you are. Okay, please ask your question.
Right, I wanted to raise one question, particularly with regard to the succession. I read somewhere in Hammond Tuki that the Nguni household has a potential for secession by its very constitution. Number one, that while the existing king at any particular time, or the reigning monarch could choose the successor, should in this particular instance, the reigning monarch not choose the first son from the Ikati, the first son had the right to secede and form his own kingdom. Would that have been right? That's my question.
Oh,
Was
okay.
that custom?
Yes, very quickly. I see you are on 359. Thank you so much, Makeba, for that incisive question. I don't know about it happening going forward, but we can never know. However, the sons of Malinde, Prince Zulu of Malandela and Kwabe Malandela, these were brothers. Because they did not get along, they then decided to go their separate ways. I'm trying to say this is the lineage of the Zulu kingdom, because you had the first, not the first, one of the second, perhaps second or third king under the Zulu kingdom was Uluzumane. Then Uluzumane gave birth to Malandela. Malandela had many sons, including Ukwabe no Zulu. They did not get along. So Kwabe left home and went and formed the Kwabe kingdom. That is why the Kwabe and the Zulu can never get married, because they're blood brothers. So yes, and Uzulu was a younger brother to Ukwabe. Ukwabe was the eldest. And he managed to go and start a new kingdom whatsoever. So if that can happen today, I wouldn't know, but who would be able to tell? But it is not something that I think anyone can stop anybody from trying to do that. I hope I've answered your question, Makeba.
Okay, thank you so much, Michelle. I think this is where we end our lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, you did late.
You can share my details if people want to follow up. I'm very welcome to that. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Ma'am Shadow.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us today. This is end of our lecture. It's also available on YouTube. So for those who were not here today, didn't make it, you can watch or listen to the lecture from the YouTube channel under UKZN. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.